Hello, welcome. In today's video, we are going to answer the questions you left in a post on the community tab yesterday. In less than 16 hours, we received more than 80 questions. I selected the most relevant ones, but if your question wasn't chosen, don't worry, as I plan to make more videos like this in the future, and I took note of all of them. We'll answer the questions right after a message from our sponsors. If you want to buy original games while saving a lot, check out Instant Gaming, the digital store that sells games for various platforms, such as PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Get games of all genres with discounts of up to 95%. You'll also find a variety of gift cards and credits for other services. You can pay for your order through your credit card on a website with a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot. You're buying games directly from Instant Gaming, not from other retailers. If you encounter any issues, Instant Gaming offers 24/7 support. Get the highly acclaimed Hogwarts Legacy now, in its base version for $11.44 and the deluxe version for $14.15. Check out the price comparison with Steam's pricing. What are you waiting for to save? First of all, this is a test video to see if you like this format. So, if you want to see more videos like this, please consider leaving a like, and if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe to get all the videos firsthand. Let's start by answering 3 users who asked nearly the same question. What are the games I play the most and which emulators I use when I'm not recording or producing content? Since I'm currently hyped about Switch games, the emulator I use the most is Citron. The second one I've been using a lot lately is PCSX2. Those who have followed the channel for a while know that PlayStation 2 is my favorite console. The third emulator I've used the most in my life is Dolphin, for sure. I really enjoy Wii and GameCube games, especially Super Mario Galaxy, which I could only play decently after I bought a DualShock 4. I've also been using Lime 3DS a lot, especially on Android, since I'm someone who gets bored easily and tend to play while I'm in lines or waiting in places for long periods. Finally, I'd say Mezen, for being a cross-platform emulator that delivers incredible results. If you enjoy classic SNES, NES games, and others, I recommend trying Mezen. As for the games I play the most right now, the one I've been playing the most on emulators is Bayonetta 3, using Citron. Also, I almost completed 100% of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on Ryujinx, since it crashes less than the Yuzu forks. I also played a lot of Tekken Tag Tournament 2 and can confirm that it runs much better on Cemu. 4th place goes to Mario Party Superstars, which I played a lot on Yuzu back in the day, especially during live streams, playing via Parsec with friends, childhood friends, and my wife. Lastly, Mario Kart 8, on the Nintendo Wii U version via Cemu, which I also played a lot on Parsec or locally with my wife. Janata Ezekiel 4423 also asked a similar question to the previous ones. He wanted to know what my favorite game of all time is. I'll mention 5 games. The first is The Witcher 3. I spent about 430 hours playing it. I bought the game on GOG and later on Steam, played with mods, and unlocked the entire map. This is definitely my game of a lifetime so far, and I recommend it for both RPG fans and action game lovers. The second game I enjoyed the most is Final Fantasy X. Although it's considered outdated today, it's a turn-based RPG originally released for PlayStation 2. If you're going to play it today, I recommend the remastered version, as it saves a lot of time with grinding and farming, allowing you to speed up the game up to 8x and enabling auto battles. This game is memorable to me because of the charming characters, the captivating story, the romance, and especially its unexpected ending. In 3rd place, I'll mention a game I played about 2 or 3 years ago, Batman: Arkham Knight. Despite the PC version still being problematic today and the game having negative points, like needing to solve over 150 Riddler puzzles to get the true ending, it's engaging from start to finish, with impressive graphics even by today's standards. Jorge Ortiz 6258 asked about the requirements to run emulators decently on PC. I'll answer the questions little by little. First, choose a processor with AVX512 instruction. Most recent AMD processors have this instruction, which puts AMD slightly ahead, as it provides a performance boost, especially in RPCS3. For Intel processors, due to security reasons, this instruction is present only in limited models. So if your focus is RPCS3, go for a processor with AVX512. He also asked about GPUs and whether AMD cards are a disadvantage. I would say yes and no. Older emulators or those relying on the OpenGL API don't perform well with AMD GPUs. Some users have commented that there are 2 optional drivers that improve compatibility with OpenGL. On the other hand, Nvidia requires only 1 driver to ensure good performance. Additionally, Nvidia currently has an advantage because it offers more performance than AMD in recent GPUs. However, if you're using Vulkan exclusively, equivalent cards will have similar performance. Another question was whether an HDD or SSD directly influences performance. In some cases, yes. SHAD PS4 benefits directly from faster read speeds. In RPCS3, games like Gran Turismo or others that load many shaders will start much faster on an SSD. But for game storage, apart from SHAD PS4, there's not much difference. So if you want to save some money, install the emulators on an SSD and keep your games, except for SHAD PS4 ones, on an HDD. Regarding RAM, 16GB is usually enough for playing at 1080p. However, for Tears of the Kingdom at 1080p, it's ideal to have at least 24GB, as the game uses many shaders simultaneously. This, combined with its massive open world, consumes more RAM, which can lead to crashes during long gaming sessions if you only have 16GB. The golden tip is that almost no one builds a PC from scratch just to emulate. In most cases, it's more cost-effective to buy a console and unlock it than to invest in a PC just to run 3 games on RPCS 3 and 2 on the Switch. So, think carefully and focus on a PC that suits your general use. An i5 from the 12th generation or an equivalent Ryzen will already provide good performance without causing headaches. Regarding the GPU, it's not a critical factor for emulation, as most emulators use the GPU moderately. Exceptions are Xenia and SHAD PS4, which require more graphical power than usual for emulation. Google asked me which games I still have trouble emulating. First, the Pokemon games on 3DS Online 3DS keep crashing when entering buildings or new environments, which makes me lose hours of farming or progress. Another one that always frustrates me is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on Android due to its absurd system requirements. Metal Gear Solid 4 on RPCS 3 is also problematic. Even with my new PC, the FPS drops still annoy me a lot. Sometimes the game runs at 140 FPS, and other times it drops to 20 FPS. Lastly, both God of War games on RPCS 3. No matter what PC you have, at certain moments, the game will run at only 15 to 20 FPS. Knight Rider 4 asked me what was the first game I emulated and which emulator I used. Initially, I was going to say ZSNES with some Bomberman, which I managed to beat using lots of save states while playing cooperatively. But then I remembered something even more obscure. The first game was Pokemon Yellow, sometime in the 90s. The emulator was probably $GBC. And here's something only people around 40 years old will remember. I saved the game and emulator on a floppy disk, which supported a maximum of 1.44 megabytes. That same disk ended up making a lot of kids in my neighborhood happy because I shared it with all of them. Black Eagle Pictures asked me if there's any emulator that showed a noticeable performance boost in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, especially in cities. As I've shown in this video, the latest versions of Ryujinx are performing excellently. However, it was necessary to use a Ryzen 7 9700X to achieve this result. So as I always say, emulators need optimizations to run even on a mid-range device. These two users above, whose names I won't even try to pronounce to avoid messing it up, asked me what I think about the future of Switch 2 emulation. Well, in my opinion, since the architecture of both consoles will likely be similar, I imagine that after the official release of the Switch successor, it could take around 3 years for a new emulator to reach a decent emulation stage. However, I'm sure that if this emulator is released publicly, it won't take more than a week for Nintendo to bring out their lawyers. On that note, they also asked if Big N will win the emulation battle. I don't think so. They might take down one project, but others will always pop up, and they'll probably be even better. They also asked about the best Switch emulator in terms of performance on a mid-range PC. I believe it's Citron, because it's constantly getting updates, accepts community bug reports, and always collaborates with other developers to make things even better. Just last week, for example, there was a collab between Camille and Mr. Purple to create even better and more compatible drivers. Stormbreaker46 asked about my recording setup. Well, I have a video scheduled to show everything in detail, especially what I use for capturing on Android, but let me give you a little preview. For recording emulators and other games on Windows, I use Nvidia Shadowplay, saving the raw files directly to an external USB 3.0 hard drive. Afterward, I edit the videos in Adobe Premiere. For Android recording, I use my ROG Phone 6, which has 2 USB-C ports. The central port allows image transmission via HDMI with a cable or adapter. For this, I use a cheap Chinese hub, costing about $5, that has a USB 3.2 input, an HDMI output, and a USB-C power input. The catch is that this adapter only works when powered by a power source, and when connected, The ROG phone also charges. Then, I send the HDMI signal to a NZXT capture card, which I bought on sale for about $50. It supports 4K 120 FPS input, but its output is limited to 1080p 60 FPS, which is more than enough for my videos. The card connects to the PC via USB 3.2, where I capture the image with OBS, save it to the external USB 3.0 hard drive, and edit it in Premiere. I'll try to leave the equipment list in the video description. And in the future, I plan to make a more specific video about it. This user also asked me how long we should wait for the Citron update, and what we can expect from it. Over the weekend, I made a video talking about it. For those who don't know, I'm a beta tester for Citron, and I'm really thankful to Zephyron and Camille for trusting me. My role is to report the problems shared by me and the community to the developers. Not everything can be fixed immediately, but overall, we can expect improvements like the end of the 0 FPS issue and even faster shader compilation. As for the release, I believe the update will be available next week, as a pre-0.5 for testing is already available. These 3 users asked similar questions. They wanted to know why Samsung devices' performance drops when they heat up, if I use cooling for Android, and if emulators can damage the device in the long term. Switch emulation is still not fully optimized. For example, when I had my motorcycle accident, I was able to use Line 3DS for almost half a day, draining only 30% of the battery. However, in the latest versions of Citron and Sudachi, I've noticed significant improvements in temperature. I remember when testing Skyline in the past, my device would reach 45 degrees Celsius before hitting thermal throttling, something that no longer happens with the mentioned emulators. When it comes to emulating Switch, especially 3D games, using an external cooler is practically mandatory. I'll leave a cheap model in the description. It's the one I use. It can reduce the temperature by up to 8 degrees Celsius, and with the device under full load, it rarely exceeds 38 degrees Celsius. Unless you live in an extremely cold place, an external cooler will be essential for Switch emulation. Finally, to answer the last question, an emulator cannot destroy the device. What can cause issues is a failure in the thermal control system, which prevents the processor clock from lowering when temperatures reach critical levels. But overall, this is extremely rare. Mary asked me about the channel. The first question was whether I think the channel will one day be my main source of income, and the answer is yes. If I could secure 1 or 2 more sponsors, like Instant Gaming, I would be able to make the channel my main source of income and turn it into my full-time job. He also asked if I want to continue creating videos indefinitely, and the answer is yes again. As long as I have an engaged community that trusts me, like all of you, I'll always be here, even if I have to stay up until 5 a.m. to produce a video. And that happens more than once a week nowadays. Regarding video production, I do everything myself: editing, researching, writing scripts, choosing topics, creating thumbnails, translating subtitles, and more. I'm a one-man army. Finally, he asked about my goals for this year. The main goal is to reach about 40k subscribers, which will put the channel in a position where I can turn it into my primary source of income. After that, I want to work on it full-time, bringing at least 1 more video per week, totaling 3 videos a week. With that, I'll also be able to create more complex content, like testing several games with each new update. Ultron6583 asked me what's better for emulation, phone or PC? It depends, but in general, the PC is the better option. I said it depends because there are emulators, like Drastic and Yaba Sanshiro 2, that have better versions for Android than for PC. For example, if we compare Drastic with Melon DS, Drastic is way better. However, in general, emulators are developed for PC, which is an older platform. Emulation on phones is still a relatively new thing, but that doesn't mean we won't see excellent projects for both platforms in the near future. Jack Zero Ben asked what's the easiest way to switch from Yuzu to Citron. I know the question was a joke, but it's easy. Just cut your user folder from Yuzu, paste it into Citron, and update the firmware and keys to version 19. Then, just enjoy. And that's the video, everyone. I hope you liked the format. If you did, don't forget to leave your feedback so I can decide if it's worth making more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.